Matthew, how do I justify my chosen method without listing and explaining every other methodology?
Yeah, this is a great question. So, usually in the justification, we're looking to see two things. We're looking to see that the methodology that you've chosen is appropriate for what you're trying to do and has been done before, right? So we're looking for sources and citations that say, I'm going to use this technique with this population to answer this question. And here's 4 or 5 other people who have used this technique to answer a similar question in a similar population. That's one way that you're really going to justify your work and being able to say, like, look, this isn't something that I just came up with. This is a valid and standard method of assessing this kind of question. Can you create a new methodology in your dissertation? Probably. But do you have time and capacity to do that as a working adult with a family and other commitments? Probably not. So, pulling from those other studies helps to really justify your work. Also helps to inspire and guide your work because when you get stuck, you can go back to those studies and see kind of what they did. It gives you some procedural support. The other thing that we're looking for is that you have intentionally rejected some other common study methods for your question. And so as you're going through the literature and you're looking for those samples that might align to what you're trying to do, flag a couple that use a different methodology to answer a similar question. Just a couple. I don't think that you need a lot. And you're going to include a couple paragraphs in your chapter that says, I also considered this study design and it was used by this person. So we're going to acknowledge that it has been used, but we chose not to use it because X, Y, and Z, because of time, because of limitations on data, because of whatever reasons that there might be. So I think those are the two elements. First, we're finding existing methodology in the literature, and we're using that to justify why we chose it. As we're finding, we're also flagging other methods that we're not going to choose. And we're going to briefly discuss 2 or 3 others and why we did not choose them. Citations, citations, citations. A lot of times people think by the time they get to that methodology chapter, they're done, that all my citations live in my literature review. They go here too. So make sure that this conversation, this part of your methodology chapter is heavily cited because that's where we're looking for proof that this methodology is going to work.
I think that's exactly right. Looking at those two ideas, what is going to work, what am I planning to do, supporting with relevant literature, and what's not going to work. And a little bit of advice if you're struggling to decide how do I choose how many other options to work with, think about your research question and which direction it leads, and then sort of do a high level. We're pursuing this qualitatively, so we're not going to be using any quantitative methodologies like John et al. And you could cite a few people. And that way you can cut out a huge chunk without too much justification and detail. And then you can close in on your specific research stream, whether it's qualitative or quantitative or mixed methods, and then talk about the smaller, more detailed approaches and why they're not relevant to addressing your question. But think about how you can bucket things if you can, and then split out that way so that you can cut out quite a large number in a single paragraph if you're worried about word count, which I'm reading between the lines is the case here.